We live in a paradox. We stream the cosmos through glass rectangles we carry in our pockets, yet many of us have never actually looked up long enough to learn the names of the stars above our own rooftops. We can map the afterglow of the Big Bang to a precision that would make ancient navigators weep, yet we're not always sure where. Morally, we're steering our civilization by mourning. We've taught robots to land themselves on other worlds with the grace of falling snow, and still struggle to land a conversation without turbulence. It's as if our instruments have outrun our intentions, our technology sprinting laps around a track while our wisdom ties its shoes. So here is a question that pretends to be about rockets and budgets and launch windows, but is really about us. What single space mission, if we chose it together, could change human history forever? It's tempting to answer with a destination and a date. Mars by the 2030 seconds, an ocean beneath the ice of Europa within the lifetime of today's middle schoolers. A mirror in space so vast, it can read the chemistry of Earth-like worlds as if they were fingerprints pressed against the night. Those are good answers. But to think that the mission is merely a place is like thinking music is merely notes. The score matters, but so does the conductor, the acoustics, the audience, and the era that calls for the symphony. The mission that could change us is not a single dart thrown at the solar system's dartboard. It is the decision to act like a species that knows the size of its own story. Let's start with a sober premise. The universe will continue just fine without us. Stars do not ask permission to ignite. Galaxies don't seek votes to collide. The cosmos is patient, amoral, and astonishingly productive with or without our applause. That recognition, unsettling as it is, frees us to ask a better question. What does the universe look like when a species chooses deliberately to notice it well? If there is a mission that could change human history, it will be the one that makes noticing our default posture rather than our occasional hobby. Picture a rocket on a coastal pad just before dawn. You can feel the Earth exhaling mist as the ocean practices its slow breathing exercise, in and out, as it has for billions of years. That rocket is every pencil you've ever sharpened, every question you ever asked, every teacher who stayed late, every janitor who turned off the lights in the lab at 2 a.m., every engineer who argued over a decimal. When it rises, it carries more than propellant. It carries a promise we keep trying to make to ourselves, that knowledge multiplied by courage will push back the borders of ignorance. But which way exactly should we point that promise? Some will say Mars, and they have an excellent case. A multi-planet civilization is an insurance policy against catastrophes, whether natural or homemade. Mars is a school for perseverance. It makes you solve problems with a 20-minute speed of light delay and a zero margin of error attitude. It teaches patience because everything on Mars, dust storms, seasons, engineering schedules, moves in a tempo slightly out of step with Earth, like a distant drum you learn to follow if you're serious about marching. A Mars campaign would force us to become more competent stewards here, because nothing exposes waste like a frontier where every gram counts. That mission could change us by reminding us we're custodians first, colonists second. Others argue for an ocean world, say, Europa or Enceladus, where liquid water hides beneath ice and chemistry, writes its cursive in darkness. Drill, melt, or carefully sip our way down. Drop a submersible that listens for the crackle of hydrothermal vents. Sample molecules that have never met sunlight. If something swims down there, even a microbe, then life is not a miracle but a habit. In that instant, our loneliness would be scientifically outdated, and 1,000 philosophies would need revision by morning. That mission could change us by puncturing a false solitude. Still others place their bets on eyes rather than footprints. A next-generation space observatory so sensitive, it can read the breath of exoplanets' carbon dioxide, methane, water vapor across dozens of light years. You point that instrument at the right star and learn whether we share the galaxy with forests and rivers, clouds and seasons, or industrial scars you can detect in the sky of another world. That mission could change us by showing us a mirror across the void. And there's a quieter proposal with explosive potential. a network of small spacecraft positioned around the sun and Earth to watch our star with relentless attention. Think of it as a solar weather service for a civilization whose power grid, communications, and comm depend on a ball of plasma 150 million kilometers away. We like to imagine catastrophe as cinematic, but the universe specializes in the mundane, the wrong solar flare, the wrong day, and we relearn how hungry candles are for oxygen. A mission to truly understand the sun is a mission to truly understand how not to be surprised by the obvious. It could change us by teaching humility that plugs into the wall. And yet, beneath all those choices hums a deeper, older logic. The mission that changes human history will be the one that best unites precision with purpose. It will marry the hard edges of mathematics to the soft tissue of meaning. It will stand on a launch pad built equally from equations and ethics, and it will climb because we remembered how to disagree productively and to dream responsibly. History offers a hint. In 1961, a president stood in front of Congress and declared that before the decade was out, we would land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth. The verbs were almost as audacious as the mission: land and return, man and safely. Behind that sentence were entire grammars of industry and education, regulation and risk. Apollo was a funnel into which the United States poured money, talent, fear, bravado, grief, and genius, and out of which came not just a footprint, but a photograph. The blue marble image from 1972 took the Earth, your home, my home, and reframed it as a single borderless organism wrapped in clouds. Policy papers cannot do what that picture did in an instant. The mission changed us because it showed us ourselves. We sometimes misremember the space race as a pure expression of curiosity, but it was also geopolitics and a pressure suit. That dual nature, messy motives alongside noble aims isn't a bug, it's the human condition. The next history-shaping mission will not be born in a monastery. It will be born in a world of budgets and elections, markets and memes. Our task is not to purify ourselves into inaction, it's to align our imperfect motives with a worthy outcome. So let's talk alignment. If the goal is to change human history, not for a news cycle, not for a decade, but for the arc of centuries, then our mission should accomplish three things at once. It should expand the frontier of truth. It should strengthen the architecture of cooperation, and it should train us relentlessly in the discipline of stewardship. These are not slogans. They are the cosmic equivalents of oxygen, water, and warmth. You can't live for long without them. First truth, the universe is under no obligation to be simple, comfortable, or flattering. It is, however, consistent. When a mission is designed to arbitrate between competing stories with data that's humble before the evidence and ruthless about error bars, that mission becomes a civic teacher. A telescope that detects biosignatures on an exoplanet does more than make headlines. It wheels the public mind for probability, for confidence intervals, for uncertainty that isn't weakness, but honesty. A lander that samples an ocean under ice yields not just salts and organics. It yields a reminder that the most important things are often hidden from casual view. In a century allergic to nuance, space can model it. Second, cooperation. You don't assemble a cathedral of sensors in space with one nation's ladder. You don't build a sustained presence on another world by treating alliances as disposable. Missions that endure braid together universities and industries, countries that agree on little else but the laws of physics. When orbital mechanics becomes a common language, you are less likely to weaponize your misunderstanding. The International Space Station looks like an erector set bolted to a sunset because that's what it is. An argument made visible that collaboration beats isolation when the stakes are cosmic. The next great mission should widen that circle until it becomes difficult to remember why we drew certain lines in the first place. Third, stewardship. One irony of exploring space is that it makes you better at caring for Earth. Closed-loop life support on a spaceship is just ecology with better alarms. Power budgets on Mars are climate literacy written in kilowatt hours. Navigation around a planet requires respect for small forces accumulating over time, exactly the mindset you need to manage emissions, fisheries, forests, and facts. When you learn to live off planet, you graduate in responsibility on planet. A civilization that can land a ballet of machines on the rings of Saturn and bring back a story that makes sense is a civilization that might be mature enough to keep its promises at home. So if you press me for a single answer, what mission could change us most? I'll give you a deliberately compound one. A century-long, multi-generational program that couples a permanent scientific foothold on Mars with a fleet of ocean world explorers and a next-generation space observatory capable of detecting life's breath on distant worlds, all scaffolded by a solar sentinel network that watches our star and shields our infrastructure. That's not 4 missions. It's one intention manifesting in several instruments. It says, we choose to endure, to know, to cooperate, and to care. It's our species writing a grant proposal to the future and attaching a bibliography that includes everything from Galileo's telescope to a small child's first why. Will it be expensive? Yes, so is ignorance. Ask any species that didn't make contingency plans. Will it be risky? Of course. Survival is by definition the art of managing risks you cannot eliminate. Will it be perfect? Not a chance. But trajectories don't have to be perfect to be right. They have to be corrected often with small, honest burns. There will be critics, the useful kind and the lazy kind. Some will ask, why explore space when there is so much suffering on Earth? It's a fair question that deserves a fair answer. We don't explore instead of caring. We explore better, so we can care more effectively. The medical scanner that finds your tumor evolved from instruments that once wanted to see a nebula's temperature. The satellite that guides relief trucks through a flooded city learns its patience from a probe that once threaded the gravity of 2 planets to get a slingshot for free. Space is not a competitor to compassion. It's compassion's engineer. Others will say, we've already been to space. That's like saying, we've already read a book and shelving the library. We are at the foot of the cosmic staircase, arguing about whether stairs are a good idea. The Milky Way is a city of 400 billion stars, and we visited the equivalent of a single front porch and a cul-de-sac. The elevator is still on the ground floor, and we're debating whether to press the button. Humor helps. So does humility. The first selfie taken on Mars was by a robot who never blinked. The first drone flight on another world was powered by a battery that knew the value of sunlight more intimately than most of us know the value of breakfast. Whenever we boast about our species, I think of the engineers who woke up at 3:07 a.m. to adjust a parameter so that a sensor could see a shadow on a moon no living eye will ever visit. And I smile at our peculiar heroism. The universe doesn't require gratitude, but it often earns it. Now imagine a century from now. A child in Nairobi or Nagoya, Manaus or Marseille opens a textbook or a visor or whatever the word will be for the device that delivers truth in their time. They watch a recording of a submersible descending through the cracked blue ice of Europa, headlights searching a cathedral of frozen arches for the glint of motion. They see the spectrograph of an exoplanet's air oxygen humming at one wavelength, methane at another, chemical chords that should not play together unless something is living there to keep time. They see a dusty panorama from a Martian valley, where a team of humans has learned to grow food with math and sunlight and patience. They see a solar storm flare at the wrong hour and the grid hum along anyway because we designed for the day the sun forgot to be gentle. Then the recording fades and the child looks out a window at a sky their ancestors also knew. And they feel not small, but situated one link in a chain, one orbit in a system that is sturdy because care is cumulative. Will that world be perfect? No. The gravitational pull of our shortcomings is as real as anything a physicist writes on a whiteboard. But the slope of our trajectory can change, and missions are how we tilt it. If you're waiting for permission to help, consider this it. Not everyone will wear a flight suit or write code that tells a jet or propellant how to sign its name in vacuum. Some of you will be the teachers who keep the grammar of curiosity alive in a student who was told to stop asking why because it slowed the class. Some of you will be the artists who give the public a reason to care about a number by turning it into a story. Some of you will be the policymakers who fight to keep research boring, in the way bridges are boring, quietly dependable, so that surprises happen where they should. In the data, not in the funding. Some of you will just keep the lights on and the coffee real. There are no small roles when the mission is continuity. I promised no mysticism, only grounded wonder, so here's the part where the scaffolding shows. The speed of light is finite. The universe expands. Entropy increases. Conservation laws keep their promises. We live in a space-time where the bill for ignorance always comes due, with interest. Any mission worth our time will respect those facts and still manage to be generous. That's the sweet spot where equations meet ethics, and both nod in approval. So what do we call this history-shaping mission? Call it the Continuum Program. Its launch vehicle is evidence. Its payload is empathy. Its trajectory is long. Its destination is a species that wakes up in the morning less surprised by reality and more delighted by responsibility. It launches every time a student realizes the scientific method isn't a list of steps, but a posture of humility. It stages when leaders choose transparency over spectacle because they'd rather be right than loud. It reaches orbit when we admit that the best way to prepare for other worlds is to honor this one with an attention worthy of its only known life status. And yes, there will be a day it might sneak up on us quietly when a small team in a modest room stares at a screen and watches data settle into a pattern that should not exist without life. Or a day when a microphone lowered into a European sea records a disturbance that repeats not like geology, but like biology. Or a day when a Martian farmer opens a greenhouse in size because the lettuce needs more magnesium. And the humor in that sentence is that it was said on another planet before lunch. These are not fantasies. They are coordinates on a map that includes us if we keep walking. When the Apollo era ended, people asked, what's next? The truthful answer was a great deal of infrastructure and a long intermission, while we learn to do space less like a sprint and more like a marathon. Today, the baton is awkwardly but unmistakably in our hands. We know how to put things where we want them in orbit and how to keep them there for a while. We know how to listen to planets talk in the language of magnetism and light. We know how to say, we were wrong, and rotate our instruments until the universe comes back into focus. These are adult competencies. They do not trend as well as launch videos, but civilizations are not built from highlights. They are built from habits. I began with a paradox. We know more than ever and feel uncertain about what to do with it. Let me end with a proposal that can hold that tension without snapping. We will choose a mission, call it Mars, or Europa, or the Great Eye, or the Sentinel Sun, but we will choose it in such a way that the process is as transformative as the prize. We will tutor ourselves in cooperation until it becomes instinct. We will practice being good ancestors while we're still someone's impatient descendants. We will measure success not only by where we plant a flag, but by how we plant a conscience. Go outside tonight, if you can, somewhere the sky still bothers to be dark. Find the planets as they tiptoe along the ecliptic like pearls on a wire. The one that doesn't twinkle is the one nearest us this month. Another, golden and steady, is farther out. One of those lights is a world we've stepped on. Another is a world we have not yet learned to love enough to visit well. Above them all stretches a galaxy that doesn't know your name. And below them stands a person who can decide to matter anyway. The mission that could change human history forever is not a rocket. It's not a rover, a lander, or a telescope. It is a decision renewed daily to behave like a species that plans to be around long enough to deserve the knowledge it seeks. Put a finer point on it. The mission is us, choosing to keep our curiosity tethered to responsibility and our power yoked to patience, then building machines that behave accordingly. If we do that, if we make awareness our fifth dimension and stewardship its gravity, then any destination we choose will be worthy. And any new world we touch will be greeted not as conquest, but as conversation. The space race becomes a relay, the baton passes cleanly, and the finish line retreats into a horizon that always, gloriously, keeps opening. Look up, then look around, then look ahead. That triple glance is the countdown that matters. 3, wonder. 2, humility. 1, action. Ignition. The countdown ends. The boosters fall away. What remains is motion steady, patient, infinite. That's the secret the cosmos keeps repeating to anyone who listens long enough. The fireworks are brief, the orbits are forever. When the engines cut off and the capsule drifts free, you suddenly hear what space has been saying all along. That silence isn't absence, it's invitation. Invitation to think, to notice, to continue. In that silence, the astronauts always speak the same first word. Not look, not record, not even wow. They say softly, home. Home. From a few hundred kilometers up, the borders are gone, the argument's invisible. Only one world spins there, blue and vulnerable. Its atmosphere a thin halo like breath on glass. That's the world this mission is for. That's the world every mission is for. Every satellite, every rover, every telescope is, in truth, a mirror angled outward so we can see ourselves more clearly on the return signal. So when the next launch happens, when the flame lights the dawn and the tower shakes, and for a heartbeat, the planet holds its breath, remember, the trajectory is ours. Each of us adds a small vector of intention to the sum. Each of us decides whether we rise cleanly or wobble back into gravity's confusion. History isn't written by the rockets that flew, but by the civilizations that chose what to fly for. And someday, when the last transmission from the edge of our solar system reaches us, its photons tired from a half-century of travel, someone will decode it, listen, and realize it isn't just data. It's a greeting card from the past, signed collectively. We try to understand. That's the real signature of intelligence. Not the ability to build, but the will to learn. Not the roar of launch, but the whisper of reflection that follows. So if you do nothing else, after hearing these words, take 1 minute tonight to step outside, find the darkest piece of sky you can. Let your eyes adjust until the stars stop looking like dots and start looking like promises. Each one of them is a possibility. Each one asks the same simple favor: pay attention. Because the space mission that could change human history forever begins not at a launch pad, but in a moment exactly like this, with someone, somewhere, looking up. When the cameras shut off and the stage lights cool, the mission doesn't end. It simply changes orbit. Every conversation that follows a child asking about the stars, a teacher pulling a planetarium app from their pocket, a headline about a new telescope, those are the second stages of ignition. The flame moves from engines to minds. We talk about launch windows, as if the sky opens only for an instant, but awareness doesn't close. It waits, patient as starlight, for us to look up again. That's why the real payload of any rocket is never the hardware. It's the habit of curiosity it leaves behind on Earth. Each launch is an act of trust in the next generation, a letter we write in ionized air that begins, "Dear future, we believed you would care enough to finish what we started." And the future answers. Sometimes it answers with new discoveries, sometimes with new mistakes. Both are forms of progress if we have the humility to listen. Look around you. The technologies that fill your day, your GPS, your weather forecast, the camera that sees in wavelengths beyond your eyes, each began as a piece of space hardware. The universe gave us perspective, and perspective gave us tools. But tools left without purpose rust even in orbit. So we must keep remembering why we build them, to see farther so that we can act wiser. One day, perhaps centuries from now, a vessel carrying descendants of our ideas will reach another star. Its crew may be human or digital or something we don't yet have words for. They will look back through their portholes or their sensors and see our sun as a tiny spark, and they will whisper gratitude to a species that once dared to think beyond survival. Maybe they'll play recordings from Earth, the sound of rain, of laughter, of jazz, improvising itself toward harmony. They'll realize that exploration was never just about leaving, it was always about learning how to belong everywhere. So when the credits roll, don't close the book. Step outside. Find that faint, steady glow low in the east or west, the planet that doesn't twinkle. That's the reminder we've been talking about all along. Jupiter, still guarding, still patient. The sun, still teaching. Earth, still turning. And you, still part of the same physics, the same story, the same fragile miracle that keeps writing itself in atoms and awareness. Carry that thought like a small, steady gravity inside you. Because in the end, the space mission that could change human history forever isn't the one that leaves the planet. It's the one that convinces us to stay worthy of it. And then, at last, the rocket's flame dies into the blue. And the sound you hear is nothing but wind moving through grass. That is how every journey ends, not with noise, but with a return to listening. Listen long enough and you notice the same rhythm everywhere. The tide against the shore, the pulse in your wrist, the clockwork of a planet's orbit. Each is a promise disguised as repetition, a reminder that continuation itself is victory. The universe will never send us an applause track. Its reward for awareness is simply more to be aware of. That's enough. That's everything. So we keep building, not because we expect eternity, but because we understand that meaning requires maintenance. The cosmos is generous with time. It is we who must be generous with attention. Tomorrow, somewhere, a student will look through a small telescope and feel that first electric jolt of realization. Those are worlds. And a teacher will smile because that single moment was the payload all along. That is how history changes, not through one grand ignition, but through countless small ones lighting the dark. Again and again, soft orchestral reprise begins. If you ever doubt your place in the scheme of things, remember that you live on a world that once decided to reach for the sky and for a brief and shining moment, touched it. And that touch, recorded in data, in memory, in the quiet pride of everyone who helped, will echo for as long as there are minds to wonder and eyes to look up. So keep wondering, keep building, keep your gravity kind. After the applause, there is always quiet. That's the moment when meaning settles, when the noise of launch becomes the hum of orbit. Every word you've just heard drifts outward now, joining the thin dust of ideas that circle our world, waiting for someone else to catch them. Some will, some won't. That's the way of orbits. Not every trajectory returns home, but enough do to keep the system alive. And maybe that's all a civilization ever needs, a few thoughts that refuse to burn up on re-entry. So let this one circle with you a while. Remember the paradox. Remember the flame. Remember that the universe will go on indifferent, and that indifference is the greatest permission it could ever give. Use it well. Keep asking, keep building, keep looking up. When the film ends, people stand up. They stretch, they talk softly, they check the time, and for a few minutes, the world feels slightly tilted, as if gravity has been adjusted by a fraction, as if some small part of them is still out there, circling with the spacecraft, orbiting the idea. That's how change really happens. Not in applause, but in the quiet decisions that follow. A student deciding to study physics instead of marketing, a policymaker funding research because they remember a line that stung with truth, a parent taking their child outside to point at Jupiter and say, that's the one they were talking about. The mission keeps flying in those moments. Each choice is a small correction burn, each conversation a signal boost through the cosmic static. And if one day someone asks you what this whole speech was about, you don't need to quote the equations or the metaphors. You can simply say, it was about noticing, about belonging, about keeping our orbit steady. Then look up, find the faintest star you can, and let yourself wonder who might be looking back. Because that quiet, ongoing human is how the space mission that could change human history forever actually begins. And then the credits fade, and you find yourself sitting in the dark with only the sound of your own breathing. The images are gone, but their gravity remains. Out there, the rockets still climb, the stations still orbit, the telescopes still drink starlight. But right here is where the mission continues. Every time you choose curiosity over cynicism, you extend the orbit. Every time you teach instead of mock, you raise the altitude. Every time you protect what's fragile, you stabilize the spin. That's what exploration was always for, to make better caretakers of those who stayed behind. So the next time someone tells you the sky is just a backdrop, remember that it is also a mirror. It reflects exactly what we choose to send into it. Our questions, our courage, our care. Keep looking up, not for escape, but for perspective. Keep building, not for conquest, but for continuity. Keep wondering, because wonder is the only renewable fuel we've ever had. And if you ever forget how extraordinary it is simply to exist, step outside on a clear night, find a single star, and realize that light left home long before we built our first fire. And yet somehow, against all odds, it still found you. When the lights finally come on, the world looks the same. Cars still pass outside, phones still glow, the night still smells of rain and concrete. But something tiny has changed. You can feel it, the way you feel a steady heartbeat after running. A rhythm, faint but certain, reminding you that you are part of a larger motion. You will go back to your routines, the deadlines, the conversations, the ordinary work of living. Yet somewhere in the background, the thought remains that above every errand, every skyline, every argument, the planets still trace their ellipses with perfect indifference and perfect grace. And that knowledge, quiet and stubborn, becomes comfort because it means you have context. You are small, yes, but you are also aware. And awareness is what turns smallness into significance. Maybe that's all the universe ever wanted from us. Not gratitude, not worship, just participation. To notice the pattern, to join the rhythm, to keep the long conversation between matter and meaning alive. So tonight, when you step outside, whether the sky is clear or clouded, look up for a moment longer than usual. Let the cold air remind you that you are made of the same atoms as the stars you can't see. Then look forward and continue. Because continuation itself is the mission, and history changes quietly every time we remember that. Awareness by itself is only potential energy. It's gravity without motion, a planet suspended before it remembers to orbit. To complete the mission, awareness must ignite responsibility. And responsibility, if we take it seriously, doesn't end at the atmosphere. It starts in the mirror. We have spent centuries learning to look outward, charting constellations, predicting eclipses, launching instruments beyond the sky. We've mastered the art of observation, but the next age of discovery will demand something rarer, the art of participation. Because the cosmos isn't finished, it's still unfolding, and we, improbable as it sounds, are part of the mechanism that keeps it unfolding. Every action we take on Earth, every innovation, every policy, every kindness reverberates through the story of the universe itself. You can't separate cosmology from consequence. The atmosphere you protect today is the same chemistry that will one day shield explorers on another world. The child you teach to love science is the consciousness that will one day steer a ship through the rings of Saturn. The forests you preserve, the data you defend, the truth you nurture, those are the launch pads of the next century. When we talk about the space mission that could change human history forever, we tend to imagine a singular moment, a countdown, a roar, a bright plume of fire. But in truth, the mission began long ago. It began the first time a human being looked up and saw not just stars, but patterns, and wondered what those patterns meant. That moment was ignition. Every rocket since has been an echo. You see, progress doesn't come from inventions alone. It comes from reinventing perspective, from realizing that what we once called out there is in fact in here, written in our atoms, our mathematics, our morality. The same hydrogen that fuels the sun fuels our breath. The same carbon forged in a dying star is the backbone of our DNA. We are stardust learning to think. And thinking, if done right, is the universe's way of seeing itself clearly. So what is the next frontier? It might not be Mars or Europa or the edge of interstellar space. It might be something quieter. The frontier of consciousness, the exploration of cooperation, the discovery of how to survive not just physically, but meaningfully, because exploration without empathy is just expansion, and knowledge without wisdom is just information. We have the maps and the machines. What we need now are the moral coordinates. Imagine a future where the technologies we design are guided not only by efficiency, but by empathy, where artificial intelligence is taught not only to calculate, but to care. Imagine an economy measured not just in GDP, but in curiosity per capita. Imagine education systems that treat wonder as a renewable resource. Those are not fantasies. Those are course corrections. They are the small thruster burns that keep civilization stable. When the forces of entropy, ignorance, greed, apathy threaten to pull us out of orbit, the cosmic perspective doesn't shrink our problems. It contextualizes them. It reminds us that climate change, conflict, and inequality are not separate storms, but variations of the same turbulence, the struggle of a young species learning to live on one planet before it dares to inhabit another. And perhaps the most important discovery we can make is that the line between space exploration and Earth preservation was always an illusion. They are the same mission viewed from different altitudes. To save a planet is to earn the right to explore another. To explore another is to remember why saving this one matters. We often talk about the overview effect, the psychological shift astronauts experience when they see Earth from orbit. They describe it as overwhelming beauty, wrapped in unbearable fragility. They see no borders, no politics, no sides, just a shimmering unity too complete to argue with. What if we could engineer that effect here on the ground? What if every school, every city, every leader could spend just 10 minutes in that perspective, long enough to understand that us and them are coordinates, not categories? If we could scale that realization, we wouldn't need to fear the future. We would build it consciously, collectively, cosmically. But awareness without application fades. So here's the challenge. Turn the overview into an outlook. Make the philosophy operational. Next time you recycle, mentor, vote, plant, protest, innovate, realize that you are performing astrophysics by another name. You are manipulating energy, entropy, and probability to extend the lifespan of meaning. When you teach a child to ask why, you are continuing the same chain reaction that began when the first atom learned to combine. When you stand up for truth, you are stabilizing the orbit of civilization. Every moral act is a scientific act. Every ethical decision is an experiment in sustainable physics. If we do this right, if we learn to fuse knowledge with kindness, then our species will not just survive, it will deserve to. And when future historians, whether human or something beyond human, look back on this century, they may not remember every war or every tweet, but they will remember the moment we realized that exploration is not about escape. It's about expansion of understanding. They will remember that we finally stopped asking, Who are we in the universe? And started asking, what does the universe become through us? Because if there's one truth we can carry from all of this, it's that the universe is not a place we go. It's a relationship we maintain. Every orbit requires two bodies. Every discovery requires two perspectives, the known and the unknown. And somewhere in between, in that thin corridor of curiosity and humility, is where history truly changes forever. When the history of our species is told from a far enough distance, it will read like a single heartbeat, one long oscillation between fear and curiosity. Every age of light has been followed by a shadow, and every shadow has been broken again by the light of those who refuse to stop looking up. That rhythm is older than civilization. It's written into the hydrogen that learned to burn, into the dust that learned to form worlds. It's the same pulse that beats in us. So if you ever wonder where the next step in our journey will come from, remember this: the next revolution will not begin in a laboratory or a boardroom or a rocket factory. It will begin the moment enough of us remember how to be astonished again. Astonishment is the seed of responsibility. Responsibility is the engine of survival. And survival, true survival, is not about lasting. It's about deserving to last. Every generation inherits a set of impossible tasks. Ours is to keep the planet livable while learning to leave it, to become explorers without becoming exiles, to prove that intelligence can coexist with kindness. That's what this mission really is. It's not a launch into space. It's a launch into maturity. Look at Earth from above. The cloud bands, the thin atmosphere, the lights tracing continents like neurons. That's us, billions of small decisions, each flickering, each necessary. Together, they form a pattern that only makes sense from a higher view. Someday, someone far from here will watch our sun rise over another horizon. They'll whisper the same questions we asked, and they'll know that every orbit, every invention, every act of care was part of one long, improbable experiment called us. When that day comes, I hope they still tell stories about this moment, about the time we stopped treating the sky as a ceiling and started treating it as a mirror, because the universe has always been waiting for that reflection. Not for our technology, but for our attention. Not for our power, but for our perspective. The rockets will cool, the noise will fade, and there will be a silence so deep you can hear your own heartbeat echo against the stars. That sound, the rhythm of matter realizing it's alive, is the real music of exploration. Keep it playing, keep it steady, keep it kind. And if you need a place to start small and local, because the cosmos scales from there. Sweep a sidewalk, calibrate a sensor, share a book that once widened your sky, plant a tree whose shade you'll never sit under, then teach someone why roots matter. Donate a few lines of code to an open data set, write a letter defending a lab, a library, a truth, take a child to a dark field and show them how to let their eyes grow patient. Build the habit of curiosity, like you build muscle repetition, rest, honesty. Read something that outlives a news cycle. Argue in good faith and measure twice before you declare victory. Hold your certainty at arm's length long enough to inspect its seams. Learn the names of the stars overhead and the workers whose hands make your morning possible. That is also astronomy. That is also stewardship. We are not waiting for heroes. We are manufacturing them in ordinary time. In classrooms with scuffed floors and in garages that smell like solder. In clinics where diagnostics owe their ancestry to distant nebulae. In committee rooms where a dull, balanced budget keeps the bright work alive. The cape you are looking for is a calendar. The superpower you want is follow-through. Remember this too. Entropy is undefeated but negotiable. The universe trends towards scatter. Life counters with pattern. Every clean data set, every repaired habitat, every reconciled disagreement is low-temperature heroism. You don't have to feel cosmic to be consequential. You just have to keep a promise long enough for the promise to keep you. One day there will be a museum wing dedicated to this century. Behind the glass will be a weather satellite with scuffs from micrometeoroids, a 3D printed wrench used on orbit, a student's crumpled notebook with a sketch of an idea that later fed a city. Visitors will stand quietly and realize that progress rarely looks like thunder when you're inside it. It looks like schedules met, instruments tuned, egos reduced to tolerable background radiation. It looks like people who decided they liked reality enough to improve their relationship with it. If you're afraid and who isn't, try this calibration. Fear points to what you value. Courage points to what you will do about it. Aim them both. Let fear remind you to guard what matters. Let courage remind you to grow what matters. That balance is orbital mechanics for the soul. Some night soon, a launch will arc across the coast again, bright as a stitched seam. Someone on a fishing pier will look up and clap without meaning to. Someone in a hospital corridor will pause, phone in hand, and feel suddenly accompanied. Someone far inland will catch the broadcast and feel their own life, aligned by a fraction of a degree. Vectors add, that is how the mission moves. And when it feels too slow, recall the arithmetic of compounding attention. A minute becomes a habit becomes a culture becomes a trajectory you can't easily derail. Civilizations are slow-motion spacecraft. They drift where their many small decisions sum. Add yours to the column marked steadier. We do not know how this ends, only how it continues. With mended nets and tuned antennas, with telescopes that teach us to see and mirrors that teach us to be seen honestly. With children who inherit not only our machines, but our manners toward truth. So before the night closes, make yourself a simple vow to notice one thing more clearly tomorrow than you did today, to carry one fact all the way to understanding, to make one correction burn when you realize you were off by a degree. That's it. That's the continuum program at human scale. Look up, yes, but also look in and look out for each other. Hold your wonder in one hand and your responsibility in the other until they stop feeling like opposites. Then step forward, quietly, deliberately. Add your small force to the grand equation. If anyone asks what you're doing, you can tell them the truth. You are participating. You are keeping the long conversation between matter and meaning alive. You are helping a young species remember why it started counting the stars in the first place. The sky will be there tomorrow. So will the work. So will the music of the orbits. Patient as ever. Tune to it. Keep time. And when you forget, go back outside and start again, because the universe forgives repetition when the chorus is care. That's how we change history without breaking it. Not by outrunning our shadows, but by walking with them toward the light. One measured step, one shared horizon, one continued attentive breath. So let this be our simple benediction. Keep your instruments honest. Keep your promises longer than your plans. Keep your wonder domesticated enough to work and wild enough to wake you. When the night returns and the constellations clock in for their shift, step outside once more. Name what you can. Respect what you can't. Add your small, steady vector to the sum. And if you need a word to carry with you, make it this. Continue. Continue to learn until facts become understanding. Continue to build until tools become trust. Continue to care until responsibility feels as natural as breath. Because the mission was never just a rocket. It was a posture. It was a promise. It was a species deciding again and again to be worthy of the sky it studies. Look up, look around, look ahead, then go quietly, bravely together into the next minute with your eyes open. The stars will keep their course. Let us keep ours.